头上还
暴风雪丢了出来，这
边
边哭雪直接被带掉，又带了一个莫伊拉，那这一波应该是可以打回来。
无救，
攻占半出掉不给，哇！
还有天脸，
是的，
拉楼上再试，
这一炮贝贝
拜拜，
掉人 ，Q 已经倒地。
熊猫人拉的有点远啊，剑走偏锋，但他没有办法支援到正面战场，反而被 Gatsby 点掉。那这几波交火下来，成都。
One participant in the grand finals has been decided, but still one more left to go. And honestly, with how crazy the last match was, Jake just had to take a moment, breathe, and get ready for what we're about to see now. So I have to say, looking at this, it's going to be the Spark taking on the Hunters. And overall, this is going to be a very interesting series where the overwhelming storyline to look at, the thing that really you have to drive home is the fact that the Hunters, a team that struggled all season long, has found their groove here into the Countdown Cup qualifiers, a team that has finally found a meta that really works to their strengths. And now the question is, can the Hunters continue the Cinderella story and get to the grand finals here and now?
Sorry about that, ZP. I've returned. My bathroom break going a little bit long there, but I am back. Looking forward to seeing who can punch their ticket to go up against the Shanghai Dragons next. Honestly, not excited, though, for whoever that team is after the last match. I mean, that was an incredible showing. I don't know how either of these teams is going to go up against the Dragons. However, they've got to win just to get there.
Yeah, and I mean, first, you just got to focus on what's in front of you, where you can't be worrying about the Dragons, where you still have a semifinal match to win. And, you know, both of these teams, I think, are teams that have enormous amounts of individual skill between the two of them. I think the Spark at sometimes struggle to find their footing, trying to figure out what they're truly good at. Not quite in the more iconic ways that the Hunters have struggled in, but still a team that, you know, for as much talent on it, at times does tend to underperform, Jake.
Yeah, well, if you look at how other teams have been successful in this current meta, it's been a lot of this dive comp. And, you know, you can't think of a comp that the Hunters are more comfortable on than one that focuses on diving, on aggression. I remember their series, yesterday that were just so incredible, playing at a sort of tempo that you don't even expect. Even at the professional level, usually teams play it a little bit slower, a little bit more cautiously. That's just not in the vocabulary of the Chengdu Hunters. However, maybe the Spark can be a tougher test for them.
Yep, and you take a look at the Hunters starting lineup here. I mean, look, this is the team that has carried them to where they are now, and I just think of players like Jinmu and Leave, right, in particular, where you have a crazy aggressive tank line from Chengdu Hunters, but what enables their tanks to do the crazy things they do is the fact that you have players like Jinmu there to clean up and just thrive on the chaos that's being created.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, what I'm interested to see, though, is can Architect and Godsby be the DPS duo that they need to really go up against the Hunters? I think if you're going to take the dive mirror, it puts a lot of emphasis on your DPS, winning those fights on the flank in particular, to get space for the rest of your team, allow them to succeed. And at the same time, for the Hunters, are they going to be running the Ameng on the Wrecking Ball, or are they going to bring out Elsa for the Winston? Last time, that was pretty much a lock-in, right? If you saw that hero or that player, you were going to see, you know, the matching hero as I just described it. So I wonder, is that going to be a bit of a vulnerability for them? Allow the Spark to predict what they will be running. However, even if you know what the Hunters are going to do, that's one thing. The other thing is actually being able to stop it, being able to handle the level of aggression you can be certain they will bring.
No. But you take a look at the Spark starting roster. You know, we talk about all the talent that's, you know, up there with Chengdu, but I mean the Spark, this is a team that's also been crazy impressive over time on an individual level. You think of what we've seen for players like Godsby, players like Gushwei, and then, you know, recently adding Architect into the equation now with the Spark. I mean, this is a team that is prized or prepped to simply succeed, and, you know, you just don't know what day it's going to be.
Yeah, it's definitely a huge pickup to add Architect to the squad. He's a player that I've loved to watch, you know, back when he was on the Shock. Now, here on the Spark, I think he can be kind of really taking over, getting that full-time starting position that I think a player of his caliber is really looking for. I mean, he is one of those very, very top-level DPS players who I think, honestly, given the Genji meta, maybe the Shock would have really loved to have a player like Architect on this roster, but, you know, now he's on the Spark, and the Spark get to use him, and he's a tool now in their kit. And, you know, for a player like Gushue as well, who is incredibly comfortable on the Winston, really cut his teeth on that hero, especially, you know, looking back to the World Cup, playing for Team China, was incredibly impressive to me, at least on the Winston. So, you know, I think this team could be pretty threatening even for a powerhouse like Chengdu.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just note one thing in terms of Architect leaving the Shock. I mean, Super heard you right now. You best be prepared. He knows where you live. It might not end well. But, I mean, overall, I completely agree, right, is that I think it was a trade that, or a pickup for the Spark that worked out immensely well for them to be able to add someone great at Genji at a time where Genji has now become meta, and you know I think to a degree has a good deal of promise for the Spark as we move forward. Now, between these two teams, right now from what we've seen of them recently, I have to say I favor Chengdu going into this matchup simply because Chengdu, they're playing what they're good at, and no one has really had a great answer.
And the tempo, I think, for me, the question is, can the Spark match that? They are, though, the #3 seed coming in to this series, which to me says that they've been having a lot of success as well in the dive meta. That's what we saw almost nonstop, at least in the hero pool element of this qualifying stage. So I think that what that does speaks well to this match, speaks that they can keep up, can hang, where a team like London, I think, typically wanted to play more standard comps, felt that they were forcing the dive in a way that didn't feel as comfortable for them, didn't feel as authentic, you know, for a team like, compared to a team like Chengdu, at least, that absolutely wants to run this 24/7.
Now, I have to ask here, and I guess your only experience as a player would go back to your own times playing against Chengdu, but, you know, you're a team that's going up to a team like Chengdu, where Chengdu, you know, for better or for worse, right, they're a team that, for the most part, historically bucks the meta. You know, is there anyone out there in preparation that you can go and say, hey, just give me the Chengdu, or you just have to accept the fact that you're not going to get preparation for what Chengdu plays for the most part? Well,
you can play the same comps as the Chengdu Hunters. You can copy their strategy, but the question is, can you actually copy their style? I mean, that is what really makes them unique. The tempo, the pace that they play, the pace that they play, rather, and the locations they're willing to fight in. They'll go right in front of your freaking spawn doors. Like, they're crazy. So you can never underestimate this team. You can never really have a moment's respite against them, and I think that's what makes them such a unique beast to play against. This is really, I think, their final form. They've been continuing to craft this style, getting better and better at it over time, you know, starting back in the GOATS meta, forcing the triple DPS Wrecking Ball, and, you know, up to now where they're a team that will bring out the Roadhog and the Wrecking Ball together. They're willing to do the crazy things that other teams won't, and not just do them, but actually execute them with confidence and have game plans around them. You know, it's one thing to look at the Hunters and think of them as, oh, they're running these crazy meme comps, but it's a very another thing for them to actually be getting wins, to be, you know, competing against some of the best teams in the Overwatch League here in the Asia-Pacific region. So you've got to put some respect in the name of the Chengdu Hunters now, and at this point, I think they're a team that can play with the best of them, especially in a dive mare, which is honestly what I'm hoping for in this series.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny how, you know, the sort of beams just go to almost scared respect, right? Where at the beginning of the Countdown Cup qualifiers, Chengdu was not a good team, right? Like, they're a team that had won all of 4 games over the course of the season. Like, objectively, this is a team that mostly lost and still doing it their own style, but now the Sun, Moon, and Stars have aligned. They're playing the style and it's working, and now everyone goes, oh, wait, we actually don't know how to deal with this when it's this good within this meta, so we'll see now if the Spark have an answer as both teams leave the starting gate.
Aiming on Orisa?
Aim on?
What?
Okay.
I don't know what universe we are living in. It's truly the strangest timeline. This is a very unconventional sim comp, although this is, you know, a pretty incredible map for sim. Just, you know, forcing the point with these turrets on the choke point. Very awkward to break that, especially for a dive comp. See if Architect's Echo can open anything up. I think the Spark are going to be pretty confused to see this strategy come out, though.
Yeah, I don't think the Spark could have prepped this as Echo, no less. And Vental on the side. This is an interesting setup, and I don't think it was one that we were prepared for, nor one that the Spark were prepared for. Here's the Spark are kind of thrown back and look a little bit tentative, Jake.
I mean, that's a pretty big error out of Architect there. I think I preemptively cast or cursed him, you know, talking him up so big on the Genji. However, the round's not over yet. There's still a lot of openings to make their mark. However, Leaves charged up a Pulse Bomb, so he's looking to potentially end this fight very early.
Thinking I'll poke in the Echo in a tough spot, 20 HP. Jinmu out of the fight. Leave though, working to the back. Among and Leave just taking space in the front. Late Young there in the follow through, and the Hunters just appear to be in full control thus far, Jake.
Yeah, the Tracer gives them a lot of unique pressure for this comp. It's a comp that typically, wants to sit back, wants to just play the point. But the addition of Zarya and Tracer means they have some explosive, aggressive potential, as well as the option for a Pulse Bomb Graviton Surge combo. And here, TP of Godsby is broken, so he can't escape there. And Architect's now over to the Tracer. Bit of a move of desperation here, I think. I don't like the Tracer into the Sim comp.
Spark right now just looking to get anything going. Meanwhile, the Hunters are in such a good spot for the next fight. Look towards Late Young, about to have the Graviton ready. Leave just pressuring the outskirts of Pulse Bombs for any reason. Takes down the Ana. Ends up falling, but taking down the Ana early, a big boom. Now Gushway, Primal Rage, Disruption, takes down Kyo in the back. I mean, this is getting scrappy, but the scrappy fight also favors the Hunters.
EMP, pretty big from Godsby, but the Symmetra wall to counter. That's going to buy his team the space they need. Now they're going to push out Architect and actually find that kill. So this should be another reset for the Spark, but Lei Young won't let them go. Going to come in with his own grab. It's just a raw damage battle here. Both teams grab in front of one another.
So low and yet still alive, but for how much longer? The Spark finally finish him off. And now the Spark, their first control, and that was just a zany fight, Jake, like from beginning to end, but the Hunters now find themselves in an enormous advantage.
Yeah, they do have pretty great chances to come back. However, they expended all of their ultimates. They went absolutely all in trying to win 100-0. I can't blame him for it. It looked like a pretty decent situation, but Sasin, to his credit, did a great job charging up his own grab. But now, with no ults on the recontest, things are looking pretty awkward. Gushway going to be coming in with his Primal, you'd have to imagine, and if they can survive that, then they'll be in better position.
Letting the Bionade just wear off. Jinmu back. Under a whole lot of pressure here. 60 HP in a Dream, able to back out. Hunter still to full 6. Decent disengage. Gushway's Primal about to fade. Leave and Architect both loaded with Pulse Bombs at the moment, and Leave on the prowl looking for the Ana. Gets the stick! And that is going to take down the Ana, give the Hunters a one-man advantage. But the bomb on the other side! It's a bad day to be an Ana. They're just exploding.
Rally for the Hunters, though, means they're going to be doing much better with only one support alive. Spark, they need to find another opening into this round. At this point, just trying to keep the point contest. There's a 3-man EMP, both tanks and the Tracer. That's a nice catch. Without the Ana, it's going to be very awkward to keep these players alive. So really a nice clutch from Godsby there. Keeps his team in the fight. Chengdu did get the flip, though, so limited objective progress for the Spark. But you know what? They'll take that. Any fight win at this point you're happy with. Now it's looking like this round is a lot more in contention. First Graviton Surge for the Spark. I think if they play this incredibly aggressively, they might be able to out-tempo even the Chengdu Hunters. However, Jinmu with the EMP, if he gets that off first, then I think it's all over. So it's kind of all on Jinmu versus Sasin here. Who can find the initiation earlier?
Well, also, Late Young is pretty close to a grab as well. There's a lot of different ways to break down Leave, though. 40 being relentless into the back. The Nano onto Namong. And oh, there's Architect! The bomb! Taking down both supports and Azaria for good measure on top. That's 4 for Architect. And that could be the exclamation point here in round 1.
Aming, Primaling, and Spawn just has to keep this point in contest. Boop, hacked, just barely gets to the point, but it costs him his life. Hunters have 4 ultimates, but they're so desperately running the point, and they cannot get there for a second touch. Wow, that round was incredibly close. I mean, if the Hunters had just been able to get to this fight, I think it was incredibly winnable. But Spark, they had the presence of mind with, the super high tempo grab Pulse Bomb combo. Incredible clutch coming out of that round. It looked incredibly desperate. You think back, that round started with Architect falling off the map on Echo of all heroes. So, pretty brutal stuff, but the fact that they had the mental fortitude to come back into it, this grab was absolutely disgusting from Sasin. Snipes into the backline. I mean, there's not 3 more important heroes.
Yep, and it's set up Architect, and that is a bit heartbreaking for the Hunters, especially because the Spark looked a little bit out of sorts in the beginning there, just seeing what the Hunters came out with. Now the Hunters running with something that we did expect them to head out with here, and that's going to be Amon on the ball, backed up by the Doom and Genji.
I'm a bit worried about the Doom. It is a good map for Doom, but I think he's going to struggle playing against Tracer and Sombra as well. Veltal on the Mercy, a very vulnerable target. I think Spark have a better dive comp here. The Hunters is going to have to outplay pretty significantly to make this Doom and Mercy work.
Gushway into Zarya Shield, gonna ruin part of that. Leave under very heavy poke damage on the side. So Hunters still looking for away. And the Bionade, though, strikes pretty deeply. Both tanks and the Spark looking very low. He's gonna roll back for a little bit of healing. Godspeed also low. Both teams good at getting people low. The disengage has opened a little bit better. Keo, though, out of the fight. Architect finds one in the back. Leave still fishing on the side. Spark starting to clean it up.
Saucin does get booped in, though, for a finish, courtesy of Ameng, but not enough to get the fight win. They do get first control on the Hunters, but I think actually winning this fight, securing cap, matters a lot more. One thing, though, is that Lei Young has managed to have an incredibly quick grab charge. I'm not sure the Spark are going to be ready for this. They do have an EMP on the side of Godspeed, though, so I think if they can initiate this fight perfectly and just drop the EMP on these tanks, then no opportunity for Lei Young to grab it. Oh, there, just perfect five-man.
Right then and there, the Spark take down Yvetal super early. Gushway just gets a walk forward. The Hunters perhaps meeting their match here, Jake, as the Spark have proven resilient to their dive here so far, and a lot of it, to me, anytime the Hunters get ready to go in, you see Leave's health bar just drop.
And I think this Hunter's comp is something designed to counter the slower comps we normally see on Control Center. However, I don't think it matches up nearly as well against Sombra Tracer. These are two heroes that can consistently win flank fights against the Doomfist, although Architect may have overextended a little bit, recalling back in. Chengdu, they've got to move fast, though, to capitalize. They do have Grab Meteor Strike. It might be the combo they're looking for.
Have the opportunity to leave attack early on. The Graviton dropped, no one in it. Godspeed is still down. The Hunters with a big advantage regardless, and I feel like this happens a lot where Lei Young goes for these Gravitons on one person, sometimes doesn't hit it at all, and then the Hunters still win the fight. It's like, you know, the grab, we didn't really need it anyways.
Well, he did get Godspeed with the grab, so it was what enabled that Sombra kill, and I think playing against the Sombra, it actually is pretty valuable to get her out of the fight first. Even if you are winning the fight, you do not want to let that hero stay alive, build up other ultimates. However, Godspeed, you just can't stop this man. He somehow has another EMP, so Jinmu does have Blade. No real enabling factor, though, and I wonder if they're going to expect that Godspeed is this quick to charge the ultimate. They might be diving in to their own dooms if that EMP goes off.
Might not expect it, but we'll see if they have an answer. He hits 3.
Not to DPS, though. Both DPS ults still available.
Yeah, Lei Young got low, but Lei Young just got slammed by Architect on the side. 2 already down. Architect just continues to be a force on the Tracer, even when Chengdu, you think they have a good setup.
Yeah, and, you know, just sitting on Meteor Strike and Dragon Blade, I don't blame the Hunters. Pretty awkward to make use of those ultimates. I think Leave would have loved to cast this Meteor Strike, but he just got bursted down by this break stun. And Veltal gonna make the switch over to the break, but it's quite late into the round. It's not guaranteed he's gonna have Rally. They do have Nano Blade and almost another grab from Lei Young. I think Lei Young has really been keeping them alive in this map.
90% towards the other grab, 85% for the Spark. A must-win fight now for the Hunters. It's going to be Gushway taking the initiative off the Nano to the Hunters' backline. Jinmu, though, the Blade, a Nano on himself, takes down Bebe and taken down by Mika on the side. Still 5-on-5. Leave, goes to the skies, Meteor Strike, heading on down, looking for the follow-through. Takes down Sauce with the aid of Amon, and the Hunters not quite done yet.
Yeah, great work from Leave to secure that fight. The fact that Lei Young held onto the grab as well is going to be really valuable coming into this final fight, but Godspeed almost has another EMP, and you've got Mika with the rally, so even if you do find the ideal grab for Lei Young, I'm not certain they're going to be able to get the follow-up necessary. You know, if they get EMP'd on the entry, then I mean, Lei Young has to get this grab off. That's what I'm worried about now. Maybe Godspeed just finds the initial EMP, and you don't even really get a fight for the Chengdu Hunters.
Oh, Lei Young drops Graviton early, and Lei Young just gets immediately bursted down. 5-on-5, the Spark down a lot of healing. Bebe out of the fight. Amon on the side, can't escape. Hunted down by Gushway. Spark back in control, then flip the point, and now it's up to the Hunters to respond, but the Hunters are bleeding. They are wounded. Yvetal gonna drop the rally. We'll see if there's any gas left in the tank. Jinbu getting isolated. Leave on the way back in. Meteor Strike. What's it gonna get? Drops on down. Looking, gets the punch. The Zarya support is there. Leave still struggling to get anything done here just yet. Looking for Gushway, finally finds him. But now look, Among in the side, gets the juggle. The Hunter's still very much in the fight.
Keo 99%.
What?
But they don't get back to the point. Oh.
But
He wasn't there. He was on the edge of the point trying to jump in. That's the danger of control. You got to be on the point early when that overtime starts ticking, or rather when it gets to the 99, because if you're not, didn't contest point recently when you hit 99, the round just instantly ends. You've got to have some point control, in the pocket there. And I think that's some minor miscommunication from the Hunters, but that's what happens when, you're down 3 players. You're trying to finish the nano charge, so Ana doesn't want to commit. She's trying to stay alive to get the nano off. Everyone's trying to find kills. Ameng was just on the flank, shutting down the enemy Ana, so those sort of fights are incredibly difficult, especially playing against Tracer Sombra. But the fact that the Hunters made that close, despite what, in my opinion, was not the best comp, coming into the mid-fight, I think Spark have, just a better dive mirror strategy here with the Tracer and the Sombra. These EMPs from Godsby, they weren't, incredibly massive, right? He didn't find the 6-mans, but just the fact that he's getting 3 of those in 1 round of control is disgusting. The pace that he's playing is so critical. And this is where we see Veltal really feeling the pain on Mercy. How do you stay alive on this hero versus the full dive that Spark are bringing to the table?
I think all of those points are relevant. All I have to say before we throw to break, as a Spark now are up 1-0, is that I definitely want slow-mo, multiple analysis viewpoints of Among relative to the point, because that is just so crazy and on the edge. It seemed like he had it in contest, and even I was surprised at the end, but we're going to take a break. We're going to review. When we come back, we'll see if the Hunters can rebound as they head to Nambani.
Coca-Cola is the official refreshment of the Overwatch League. The Overwatch League is brought to you by T-Mobile. Switch today and rank up to America's largest 5G network, T-Mobile. And by State Farm. For auto, home, or renters insurance, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
The Spark proving resilient against Chengdu and their unconventional strategies, taking the first map. But now, Jake, as we look forward towards Nambani, we have some swap-ups here that might be a little bit unexpected, especially given how Chengdu was playing just yesterday, where, as we go into Nambani, we thought we might have been seeing Elsa again, because Elsa was, of course, who played in the last Chengdu matchup, swapped out for Among and Nambani. But now we have a different swap-up where it's A-Ting coming in, and I actually don't know what to make of this.
Yeah, I'm similarly confused. I think they played well with Elsa. Maybe it was a bit surprising to see Elsa on the Winston at all, though. So that could have been indicative of just a different approach, and now they want to bring in A-Ting to play Winston. Maybe they'll be coming out with a different strategy altogether. However, they had tremendous success yesterday. So it is surprising to see them, making what looks like a match day change up here. Maybe some scrim results, today, earlier on, maybe making them feel differently about their hero choices. But yeah, I am quite a bit surprised here to see this coming out. However, I do think the Spark right now look like the better dive team. The Hunters, their craziness is coming back to bite them a little bit here, especially, the Doom and the Genji and the Mercy on Control Center. I guess Doomfist, there's some argument for the hero on Control Center. It has a lot of potential to backwall the opponent. However, that hero just does not function well against Tracer and Sombra. So Tracer can just dodge all your cooldowns. Sombra can hit you with the hack or the EMP, which completely shuts you down when you're playing Doomfist. So I think, and more than anything, Veltal on the Mercy versus a Brig, really questionable when you're in the full dive mirror. The Mercy gets a lot of value when you're playing against a slower comp that doesn't punish her. You can just damage boost your DPS and turn them into real monsters, especially Jinmu. We saw him with that supercharged blade in yesterday's match. However, this time it never came to fruition because Spark are in control of the game. They're playing a faster tempo with the Tracer, the Sombra, and a Brig of their own, and it really paid off big time on Control Center.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that I noticed from the Spark here, too, is that, I think a lot of teams at times when they are aggressive will try and, fight aggressiveness with aggressiveness, but I feel like there were multiple times there where the Spark were more than willing to just sort of hang back, wait for Chengdu to commit, and then just punish. And, the biggest example back at the Control Center was just how many times, even if it was on camera, did we see Leave go in, and then no one else on Chengdu really had their HP going down, but Leave would just get zapped on the Doom, have to back out, and then suddenly Spark would go, okay, now that we've wounded you in this way, we're going to take more of the initiative, where I almost feel like the Spark have realized that against Chengdu, sometimes it's better to be more of a counterpuncher.
Well, it's the nature of a hero like Doomfist. You rely on those sort of big plays coming out with your cooldown set, but if you don't find enough value on the cooldown set, heroes like Tracer and Sombra, yes, they do have cooldowns, but they're not nearly as reliant on those as a hero like Doomfist. And Doomfist as well, he wants to be starting from high ground positions. He wants to be, setting up from the ideal spots. And once you go in with that, first initiation, blowing your whole cooldown load, even if you survive that and manage to escape, you aren't really going to ever be able to be quite so effective in the rest of the team fight. So if that first initiation from the Wrecking Ball in particular fails, Winston just leaps in with full confidence. If he can't get slammed, he can't get booped around by the Wrecking Ball. Winston also, on a faster cooldown cycle than Wrecking Ball. That Slam and the Shield in particular are quite long cooldowns where Winston doesn't really need to play around anything but his leap in that same instance. So I think you're exactly right about that. Counterpunching against Doomfist, incredibly effective. That hero, if he doesn't knock you out in one blow, he is a bit of a liability, especially against the Tracer.
And when we saw it, Guxue was just super comfortable just walking forward after that, right? Where leaves, so to speak. Guxue goes forward, and what we saw in particular, too, is that there was great synergy between the DPS and Guxue, especially Architect, right? Where, yeah, it was Architect that was appearing super flashy, but a lot of that was just Guxue walking forward, and, during that period where Doom's down on cooldown, Chengdu's a little bit split, they don't have a great answer for Guxue just holding W and just tasering everyone, right? And then while they're worrying about that, while they're worrying about Guxue, here comes Architect, sweeps in, picks off 1-2 people, and then the fight's just over. So the Spark, I think more than anything else, have just been incredibly adaptive so far against the unique brand of chaos that the Hunters like to play.
Yeah, I think the Spark have certainly studied up for this matchup. They look well prepared. We'll see if that carries through, though, with the adjustment for the Hunters. I'm guessing to bring in bringing in anyone but Aming says to me that they want to go to the more traditional dive style that focuses on the Winston. And to be fair, Lijiang Tower is a very unique map. We didn't get to see the Garden stage, but that is the place where you would expect to see Wrecking Ball be a little bit more dominant. So you can understand why they wanted to play things a little bit differently against the Spark to keep Aming in. You can see why they want him for Lijiang Tower. However, going to the more classic Numbani stage, this is where the Hunters played Tracer Sombra of their own. They say the full standard dive mirror, so we might see a complete mirror match of that strategy, and that's where I think the rubber will really meet the road in this series. That's where we're going to get to see how the rest of the series is going to shape up, and looking ahead to the potential Grand Finals match, this is where either team really wants to show a lot of dominance. I think for the Spark to win this cleanly, that they're going to need to do that almost at a minimum, I think, to show the Dragons that they're really a force to be reckoned with. Because the Dragons don't seem to be taking losses for an answer right now.
I also think if you're the Dragons and if you're rooting for who to win, because of course teams look at this and they go, who would they rather face? I definitely think if you're the Dragons, you'd much rather face the Spark rather than facing the Hunters at the moment, because the Hunters have this weird thing where based on matchups they can sort of surprise you, whereas against the Spark I really do think that the Dragons for now seemingly outclass them, even if they beat the Hunters here. But either way, those are questions to be answered a little bit later. We're still dealing with a pause in game, so we're going to take a break. When we come back, the action resumes. So there's a bit of a delay, but we are back. And to catch you up, it's a Spark up 1-0 over the Hunters, and what was a pretty interesting map 1 back on Lijiang. And now our attention turns to Numbani to see if the Hunters could turn things back around. And the interesting part here that we're talking about before the break is that in terms of main tank cycling here for the Hunters, we've seen a lot of swaps between Among and Elsa, and it worked out really well for them yesterday. But now A-Ting is in, and it's a big question mark on everyone's minds.
Yeah, it's hard to understand from the outside why they're making this play. Elsa didn't have like a completely mind-blowing game on Winston, but he did fine. He had a good game. Did his job, made the space necessary for the team to succeed. They played a very high tempo, played the Sombra Tracer, with Elsa in. So, that's what the Spark were running. That's what they've been winning with. So if you're going to take the mirror matchup, why not play what worked for you last time? Well, the Chengdu Hunters, they've got a different idea. Maybe they're playing out a new strategy, although maybe it's evidence that bringing in Elsa at all was actually the surprising element in the first place. Maybe A-Ting was expected to play all along, and there was some issue yesterday that led to Elsa being in the lineup. Well, it's anybody's guess going into this next map, but this is where I think we're going to find out why A-Ting's in. Will it be a strategy change, or will it just be more of the same, at least playing the Winston, Tracer, and the Sombra?
Well, I'll say this much, is that if the Hunters come in here with A-Ting, I think there's a lot of pressure one way or another, regardless of what the end result is, because if A-Ting comes in and the Hunters look a lot worse than they did yesterday, I think a lot of people are going to sit here and go, whoa, why did you change up? Even if A-Ting wasn't the problem, even if there's other things for the Hunters performing poorly or Spark just playing out of their minds, I think no matter what, if the Hunters win here, they'll go, well, yeah, you won yesterday, you looked good. I guess A-Ting, you're all right. But if they lose, there's going to be a lot of pressure on it. So it is an interesting dynamic, one way or another. Not saying it's all right or wrong, but this is just how people generally see these things, right? So, regardless, it's an interesting move for Chengdu, and I'm just curious to see how it pans out.
Yeah, you're definitely right, though, about the pressure that I'm sure A-Ting is probably feeling right now after his team had such a great performance yesterday, and now they're down 1-0, right? So you don't want to come in and, feel like you let your team down, feel like, things went awry. Although, of course, it is a team game, right? So as much as that's the narrative, because, that's the one change from yesterday, well, the other change from yesterday is that they're playing a new team. And the Hangzhou Spark just look a lot more confident in the dive mirror than the London Spitfire did yesterday. So I don't think this match is going to come down to one person, regardless of the performance of the main tank, regardless of who's playing it. I think this is going to be, what's going to be defining this is the team game, is the strategy. And so far from the Hunters, right, what's been enabling them to succeed, it hasn't been one superstar player popping off and carrying them. It has been a team effort. And I think especially when you're playing the dive comp, that's when the team effort is more critical than ever. There's no Widowmaker on the field just popping off, getting quadra kills, right, and just, going absolutely nuts. That's not really the way the game is played in dive. It's much more team-centric. Everyone piling on their damage to one target is all about the focus fire, especially in the mirror batch, focusing down an enemy Winston. Nobody can do that alone in dive comp, right? Nobody has the raw resources or the damage to do it by themselves. So the teamwork and the tempo are everything. So far, the Spark have been in control of that regard, though. So for the Hunters right now, I think they run the risk of being in trouble, especially yesterday, playing the same two starting maps. If they go down 0-2 here, it's going to be a pretty rough spot mentally, given that they had such success yesterday. And when the script gets flipped like that and you had great success, then you fail brutally, that's the kind of a worst-case scenario for your mental.
I will say for the Hunters, if they're one team that I would never count out, simply because you think about how their qualifiers into the Countdown Cup started, right? You rewind time, you go all the way back to their fated matchup versus New York. They play the first two maps on comps that are wacky in New York, dominated the first half, and then Chengdu, just everything starts clicking, and they turn the entire flow of the series around, and they win the reverse sweep. So, Chengdu just is one of those teams that can actually turn things around. So, it's hard to judge until they're fully out of the series. And there's not a lot of teams in Overwatch you can say that about, but I think Chengdu is definitely one of them.
Yeah, that's true. They are a team that hasn't been cursed, by that anti-clutch. They are definitely a clutch team, though. Like, regardless of their performance, right, maybe they've struggled a bit in the APAC region overall this season. However, it hasn't been the clutch scenarios that are a challenge for them. When they lose, it tends to be, more of a complete beatdown, right? Like, but when they do find their footing late into the series, they can snowball it, right? They can still find their way back. So, regardless of how the opening maps go, I think you are right to say that Chengdu is not out of it until it's fully over. Especially because they looked really, really great, especially on the 2CP map last time we saw them play.
Well, that is going to bring us to another break because we have technical issues. But I will say is that if I had full production control, if I could just snap my fingers and make anything happen before throwing to the break, I just put up a big picture of Wolf laughing. Because no doubt he's looking at this right now, and he's laughing like, ha-ha, the pauses are happening, and not to me. Well, guess what? You're casting later tonight, Wolf. Vengeance may be mine. But for now, we are taking a break because the pause continues. Even as Wolf cackles throughout the night, let it be known that the pause is just about over. A little bit of a rest here after a crazy map 1. And now we look towards Numbani once more, Jake, to see if the Hunters, with the swap of main tank from Among over the A-Ting, can even up the series 1-1 against the Spark.
Yeah, it's certainly a surprise. I mean, to be making an adjustment from, you know, 1 day of matches to literally the next day playing more matches on the exact same maps. I'm not sure what's going through the mind of the Chengdu Hunters right here, where the thoughts are of their coaching staff, but we'll see. Maybe it's justified. Maybe A-Ting is really that secret weapon they've been holding in reserve this whole time as we do finally get back into game on Numbani. Can't wait to see how this one breaks down, especially as it comes to the strategy matchup. Will the Hunters elect to keep going with, you know, yesterday I believe pretty much first point they played the Genji, but pretty much the rest of the map they stuck with the Tracer Sombra, which is exactly what we saw out of the Spark last map. So, you know, will we see that classic mirror match here? Will we get some Architect Genji? Well, it's all in store here on Numbani.
Well, quick look at the Hunters as they head on the defense, which means they're not really likely to swap it. This is going to be A-Ting on the Winston. Otherwise, not a whole lot looking different. So, I mean, this is just a player change heading on in here, and we'll see if it pays off. Meanwhile, you look at the Spark, they can still change things up being the offense, but, you know, the Sombra Genji, I think this is probably the final look.
Yeah, likely to see the Genji on offense here. Gives you a little bit more oomph when it comes to the ultimate economy game. Even if you're losing, you know, the first and second neutral fights, at least if you're running the Genji, you'll have that explosive Nano Blade combo. However, I think what's going to be more important is going to be the Sombra gameplay here on these first fights. You know, a clutch hack that shuts down the offense or vice versa that open things up for them. Is really a game changer as Jinwoo tries to get the decloak, but can't find it. Godspeed, just a little bit too evasive.
Two Sombras bumping against each other in the night. As we just saw there. The Spark setting up their offense. The Hunters hanging back. Jinwoo a little bit ahead Godspeed now for all that it matters. And right now, just neutral games.
Architect managed to get out of a relatively sticky situation there. I love that Mega Pack hack from Jinwoo. Makes it very awkward for a Genji to fight on that position. Normally he would love to rely on that pack. Leave, though, gets hacked on the other side, but managed to be protected by his team just enough to get the recall out. Ooh, that was close.
William getting slept in the middle of that, woken right up. The Hunters, though, starting to give up more and more ground as the Spark move in. They take the high ground. Oh, the Bionade's big. Architect and Mika in a bit of danger, but there's no follow through. The Spark are able to shrug it off, and they maintain the position they had. And now Gushue gets to work, heads over the top, finds Kyo, takes him down. And now the Spark on 6v5. And the Hunters, up to them to find a way to respond. Leave perhaps the one way, holding onto the Pulse Bomb, push back a bit. Yvetel out of the fight. And the Hunters just find themselves ceding ground. And the Nano on the Sassen, that was a big part why.
Yeah, he got a little bit low there. Bebe just said, let's secure it, you know, commit the Nano Boost. Jinwoo also slept, going to be bursted down from Bebe. Bebe, what a play in that fight as well. You know, that opening kill onto Kyo was assisted by a Bionade from long range by Bebe. So, you know, Kyo may have found a nade of his own, but no follow-up, and Bebe just returns the favor. So, beautiful work by both of the Anas. Their gameplay particularly important in this dive mirror. You don't have any way to eat Bionade. I mean, yes, Zarya Bubble can block it,
what?
But that's a scarce resource, and somehow Architect shuts down Leave on the flank as well. So Chengdu Hunters, this fast tempo that we expected them to play, so far it's been going in favor of the Hangzhou Spark, looking like a lot more competent of a dive mirror team than London were able to put up a fight yesterday.
I think part of it, you look at the DPS matchups here, Architect is finding ways to punish either Leave or Jinwoo or both, depending on the fight. You know, Architect, not a slouch in these one-on-one situations. but now holding on to the blade. EMP used by Jinmu and the Spark. They back out, they punish Jinmu. They lose Mika though. The Hunters are all in on this fight. But Godspeed still hanging on to the EMP, gets healed back up. Architect hanging on to the blade. I don't really think he wants to use it here. And there's a grab primal. Shouldn't have to use it. This is big for the Spark.
Yeah, the grab is just perfect there. Finds all those squishies, and they die so quickly in the Graviton Surge, all grouped up like that for the AoE damage. And Spark, I mean, they're just cruising at this point. Hunters have no answers. I mean, yes, you've got some ults to work with on the defense, but what is it? Just grab? You're gonna grab the Nano Blade without getting EMP'd by Godspeed, without getting overwhelmed by the rally from Mika. This is pretty rough.
It's a tough spot.
We could see, a full cap here with a lot of time to spare on the side of the Hangzhou Spark.
The Spark running to the perfect situation being in here, but okay, not perfect anymore. Bionade immediately exhausts a little bit, and the Spark are going for it. They drop the EMP and the Nano Blade. Architect says we don't need 6, 1 is enough. Or at least I am. The Nano, as a result, ends up with 4, and the Spark take the fight, even starting out down to numbers.
Well, because of that loss onto Sasan, though, they needed EMP and Nano Blade to close things out, as well as the rally from Mika. So Velthal's rally might be enough to stabilize, and they really need to make a hold at this point. You cannot allow Spark to cap in this fight.
Definitely not. And I mean, the Spark, they don't have the momentum they would have had otherwise because of that early Sasan pickoff. Now the Hunters diving forward, looking to push them back. And I mean, the Spark, they're losing in the neutral game right now, so they do have to respect it. They do have to give up some room. It's going to let the Hunters stabilize, at least for now.
Well, that's the impact of the rally, right? But as that armor decays, Spark are going to find themselves back on even footing. Architect does get hacked. He gets cut down as well by A-Ting. Nice jump in from the Winston. So things are starting to turn around here for the Hunters. However, it's not quite enough for the hold to be solidified just yet. This next wave of Nano Blade and EMP is going to be another tough test for them to get over.
Definitely is. Although the Hunters, I mean, things aren't looking nearly as grim as they were just a fight ago. I think the Spark really did have to overcommit on things because of that early pickoff where, yeah, they won the fight momentarily, but it wasn't enough to bring it to the end. And A-Ting going in off the Nano early on here. Zantu's trying to bring the fight to the Spark. Meanwhile, the Spark, they drop the Nano on the Architect, who's nowhere close to the Blade, just sort of keeping him alive and forcing A-Ting back, perhaps.
Yeah, keeps him alive, keeps him fighting, but as you said, doesn't get enough. And Architect does get caught in the feet by that EMP. It's going to enable A-Ting to just chase him down, beat him up. Dash is missed as well, but I mean, you can't blame Architect getting bounced around by the Primal. And here we see maybe why A-Ting on the Winston was the choice here for the Chengdu Hunters. He looks really confident with these Primal Rages. Nice Bionade follow-up from Kyo and A-Ting working together there, shutting down both of those enemy supports. Now Spark, though, this is really their moment. Big ultimate advantage in their favor. One downside is that you don't have the Nano to work with, so Architect's Blade is going to be just a little bit less effective than it might otherwise be.
I think with the EMP, though, it'll be fine. I think they just eat this grab, right? The grab is early enough. You just go, okay, yeah, we die. But now they go back in. They don't have to worry about the grab. And the Hunters, I mean, this is where the Hunters are going to get crazy aggro, I think, Jake, potentially, and just try and take a fight, or at least force the Spark to use resources before they get to the payload.
Yeah, this is textbook Hunters trying to fight in the enemy spawn when you're down in ultimates. And I think there's a lot of merit to it, but just the EMP onto A-Ting to instantly burn him down. No chance to escape. However, Jinmu somehow shuts down Godspeed. So EMP, was that really the best value you can get out of the ultimate? Did you really need the EMP, the enemy Winston like that? Because now Chengdu is going to bend back to their spawn, but the Winston's going to be back, and he'll be in this fight with a Primal Rage.
Yeah, I think that was perfect for the Hunters. They got the EMP out like they wanted, and it couldn't have gone any better for them. Still a tough fight potentially coming out. His leave, though, gets Mika. Makes the fight a whole lot easier for the Hunters. They're still totally healthy, and Sasan super low, under pressure. The Spark down 1, and they're just seeing the time leak away from them here, Jake. Only 1:20 left to go.
Yeah, they have been cautious with these big ultimate commitments, though. So, I think the window, it's still there for the Spark. They just have to get past these initial bursts of aggression that the Hunters keep laying into them. However, that's easier said than done, as once again, A-Ting initiates so early, he doesn't want to let the enemies have any sort of space to get their Nano Blade off.
A-Ting, though, under focus fire, has to use Primal to survive. Still getting focused all the while. You have the Nano on the Late Young, though. This is dangerous. This is where Late Young looks so incredibly scary. Charged up on the payload, builds the grab. The Hunters still at a full 6. A-Ting, though, waiting for skills. And okay, the Graviton's in. follow-through right there. Keo drops the bio. Late Young there for his own follow-through. The Hunters push the Spark back again, and now the Spark, Jake, down to one last fight.
And at this point, we can't even really call it patience from the Spark. They're just being shut down time and time again. Architect and Bebe have been holding on to this ult combo for an entire EMP cycle from Godspeed. Remember, they had these ultimates up the last time Godspeed had EMP, and he almost has another. So what that shows is that there's been a lot of bad fights in a row. And with Jinmu's EMP online, Leave getting cut down is big, but still, Architect, he's got to get a quick initiation with this blade. I mean, you cannot get EMP. You need to get this ultimate out.
I mean, the upside for the Spark on that pickoff, it doesn't win them the next fight, but it does give them better positioning for it. I fully agree. It's up to Architect and the blade. Jinmu, though, gets slipped! If they can pick off Jinmu, this is so big! They do! Jinmu down off the sleep from Bebe! And now the Spark have an enormous opportunity. Up 6-4. The Hunters holding back, hoping to get respawns back up, but they lose Keo. The Hunters are not going to be able to fight this on even numbers. The Spark, they're keeping the payload moving forward, and that's just about it. It looked like it was over. They get to the payload just in time, and 18 now delaying. Architect, Nano Blade finds Jinmu down, and the Spark finish. But it is with no time left remaining.
Pretty incredible defense by the Chengdu Hunters there on third point. Remember, Spark got to third point with over 5 minutes remaining to push, and somehow that was whittled down to absolutely nothing. And you have to think, I mean, without that sleep dart, pretty clutch from Bebe. If he doesn't find that sleep dart in the enemy Sombra, you know, I have to feel like Chengdu had an advantage fight after fight after fight. And we get to see probably a replay of that moment. And oh my word, what a disgusting sleep dart. While he's being hacked, the 180 sleep, I mean, that is a clutch and a half right there from Bebe.
I mean, that was literally round winning as far as I'm concerned, because if Jinmu is alive to give an EMP to the Chengdu Hunters when they have a full 6, I don't think Spark win that fight. But they removed one of the most important players for the Hunters, one of the most important ultimates, and, you know, just outright made it a 6-on-5 on top of it with one sleep dart. That was an insane play coming in from Bebe, and as a result, the Sparks still have a very good chance to take the map.
Architect as well has a big choice to make right here. I saw him on Genji in the spawn. Now he's over onto the Tracer. I actually prefer this Tracer style. I think the Genji slows things down just a little bit too much and gives Chengdu Hunters that tiny opening. And really, for the Hunters, that's all they need. Sometimes they don't need any opening at all. They'll make their own opening. So I think Tracer is going to give you that maximum pace gameplay. You're not going to be relying on ultimate combo. You can dump those nanos freely into, you know, players like Gushui and Sasin for them to charge their ultimates, you know, not relying on a nano blade combo. It's a little bit straightforward and sometimes gives an opening to the team with a Tracer Sombra.
Spark, meanwhile, on the defense. This is where Gushui is going to be measured on when to leap in.
Nice move.
Jinmu super low, getting pushed out. Waiting under heavy pressure as well. The Spark playing the top right now, not too concerned about progress on the point just yet. And, you know, you look at the neutral game right now, a big difference between this match and the one before against the Spitfire, Jake, is that I think Architect is definitely checking Jinmu and Leave a lot more than what we saw from the DPS of the London Spitfire.
And look at Godspeed here, just role-playing a Soldier 76, standing in the middle of the point, you know, left-clicking at mid-range. He's 75% to his first EMP. Does get the sleep from long range, though. Keo, that's so clutch.
The Anas continue to impress all day long. The Hunters now, 6v5 opportunity. The Spark getting pushed back. Gushui low, healed right back up. Sasin, same. It's Bebe going wild on the heels, builds up the nano as a result. The Spark, they're not out of this fight yet. They're going to drop the nano on the Gushui. Gushui moves forward, has to be dealt with. Ating, though, does much the same on the other side. It's a little bit more effective. It takes down Sasin. And the Hunters now still trying to maintain control. Architect, though, wins against his other number. The Spark coming in for one more fight. Pulse bomb out from Architect, connects, takes down Ating, and now the Spark, they're back on the fight. Gushui has a problem reserve, and this means the Spark can delay or just outright win, and right now it's trending more towards win.
However, EMP does come down from Jinmu. Late Young has Graviton Surge, is going to commit. Do they have the damage to take out Mika? He's barely surviving. Pulse bomb does get it, but it costs Leave his own life. Gushui with the primal as well, but it's being melted down.
The Gushui, though, builds enough space. More respawns from the Spark coming back onto the fight. But Bebe falling is huge. The Spark going to find themselves a lot more down and healing. And yet they do not give up. Godspeed finished it off. Ating. And because of that, he's super close to getting EMP. The problem is the Spark run out of people to throw at the payload. Still a whole lot of time burned off the clock.
Yeah, it is, but what an incredible offense by the Hunters, managing to come back into that. Despite Architect finding 2 kills on his opposing Tracer and the Winston, you have to think that incredibly fast grab from Lei Young was really impactful there. Ended up getting more than Sasen's number, and Jinmu now has his own EMP, so both teams with the EMP to work with. It's going to be all on who finds his opening initiation.
The Hunters looking to keep up any momentum they currently have. Nano onto A-Ting as they move forward. Godspeed drops EMP, only hits Lei Young. Yet, Jinmu gets caught on the side, taken down as A-Ting working to the back. Primal Rage up under very heavy focus fire. 1,000 HP doesn't seem like a whole lot. Gets hacked. That should be the end of A-Ting here, and yet A-Ting still surviving, getting enough heals, and the distraction for Lei Young is huge.
Yeah, it's a full reset, looks like, for the Spark, but a nice late pick onto leave from Sasen on this high ground, so this could be looking at a recontest here for the Spark. They do have a Nano to potentially enable Gushue to be into this fight. Nano does come down, and that's going to keep Sasen fighting despite the EMP landing right on his head.
Era of the Nano Zarya, now the Graviton ready to go. Architect out of the fight. We'll see if the Grav is a difference maker. The Pulse Bomb in the back leave works. The Hunters up 6 on 4. The Graviton not really doing much in the end. And as a result, the Hunters are going to get point B. 4 minutes, 21 seconds left to go. And the Spark need to make up for time here on point C.
Chengdu seem to have found their footing here in the mirror match. On Koth, it went the way of the Spark pretty decisively. But now that the Hunters are, they brought in A-Ting, a little bit more comfortable on the Winston, and they're starting off with the Tracer Sombra, no Doomfist, no Genji, no Mercy. Now things are looking a lot better for them. I think this comp is just a lot more effective in the mirror, and Chengdu may be the better team.
Spark, though, got the jump on them. Nano and A-Ting are no. They just collapsed on the Veltal, took it down, and as a result, both supports out of the fight early for the Hunters. Now, simply have to retreat. And when you're looking at the time here, Jake, the magic number here for the Spark, they have to get it under a minute if they want to keep them on a map in contest.
Yeah, that's certainly critical here. But beyond that, I mean, you can't worry about the time bank just yet. We're still at the phase where you just need to focus on winning fights, trying to stay ahead of the ultimate economy. You're not going to be able to delay for long in this mirror match. You need to actually be winning fights decisively. It's going to be all about finding that initiation, blowing up the enemy supports before they can get a lot of value in the fight.
Real close to the EMP right now, opens up a pack. Look at this pressure onto the Ana. Bebe taken down, but it comes at a cost. Well, they were working on that. Architect does much the same in the back. Ana's continuing to get focused all day long. The Spark, they get the better of the trade as Gushue just walks forward.
Yeah, Gushue holding down M1 right here, zapping away. And if he can escape to his Ana, that would be so huge. Oh, and that's a ton of heals now for Mika to collect to charge up his rally. So, those sort of small things make a big difference when it comes to the dive mirror, especially that rally ultimate. It's just so incredibly crucial here, providing so much value. Hunters, they've got a bit of an edge here, but the defensive EMP, I think, is an even bigger advantage. Jinmu, of course, has his own, but it's just a lot easier to find a good EMP on the defense. Attackers need to group up naturally.
The Hunters need to win this next fight. If they don't, the Spark are essentially guaranteed to at least get an attacking round after. So if the Hunters want to put this away now, this is the fight they need to win. Early EMP out from Godspeed. It's 3, but the Hunters, they just bend back. I don't think they bend back enough, though. It was looking good, but the Sparks still get the momentum over it. They had to invest the grab, but grab EMP, too much for the Hunters to bear.
Yeah, the Hunters tried to commit the rally, tried to survive through the EMP, but it ends up biting them because now Mika was able to hold on to his own rally. Jinmu even committed the EMP, so it's going to be hard to get this win for the Chengdu Hunters. Lei Young needs to find a massive grab somehow. He does have Leaves Pulse Bomb as a pretty reliable combo there, but he's just going to take the 1K. Is this enough? And he gets bubbled and primal, so it's not even a kill. Forces some ultimate, sure, but I don't know if that's enough here with Mika's rally still on the table.
Gushue is still getting chased down, by the way, as it goes on, but I think now finally Gushue healed back up. And look, that's a trade you take all the time as a Spark. You love to trade the Primal or the Graviton there. I mean, that's Lei Young special, right? One grab, one person. But now the Hunter's moving in again. Jinmu's super low, has to back out, can't get away! Sasen finishes him off, and 18 slept mid-nano! The Spark continuing to have the answers they need. And now the Hunters, the question is, can they even finish at all? And the Spark have also guaranteed themselves an attack round, even if they do.
18 slept again. just an absolute magnet for these sleeps. Saucet is going to be sent a lot deeper than he would ever have chosen to go on his own. That is going to cost him his life, but still the reset here is going to be pretty accessible to the Spark. They have the EMP advantage. Jinmu really needs to bridge that gap. Pretty critical, I think, to have any chance of winning this final fight. If Godsby just finds the initiation, gets the drop early, we're looking at a final fight scenario here for the Hunters. A reset might not be possible.
So Mebo takes early EMP from Godsby, sets the tone, hits 3, and 2 already on the floor. A-Tank can't get away, so 3 EMP, 3 eliminations, and the Hunters are down to 15 seconds, Jake. They don't have the luxury of a full reset. Now we're in miracle territory.
Yeah, and Veltal is dying so late. A-Tank gonna make the switch over to the Wrecking Ball. Jinmu has the touch. He's got an EMP as well, but where will the follow-up be? You have no sustain in this fight for the Hunters. Veltal still in the spawn as overtime begins.
Well, they drop the emergency EMP. A-Tank in there on the ball. And the Hunters hope to make magic happen here in the Bonnie. Saucen, though, drops Graviton in the back. Just denying space, an actual zoning Graviton. And now 3 already down the Hunters. The odds getting greater and greater against them. So hope for anything to get things going. They don't get it. And the Spark now just 1 map away from beating the Dragons in the grand finals.
Oh, it looks so promising, but I think that third point just has such natural defender's advantage when you're playing that mirror matchup. You know, if anything, it's a surprise Spark were able to push it through at all. Maybe that's why they wanted to commit to the Genji on offense. Maybe a bit less versatile, you know, in the neutral game, but at least you've got that Nano Blade giving you that sort of final endgame win condition that Chengdu Hunters just couldn't manage to put together there. The defender's advantage just so significant there. You know, Godsby just almost always had the better EMP there. But that's natural. You know, I think that's almost the way it has to go when you're defenders. You're just setting up all in these corners around the map. You're just waiting for the attackers to walk, you know, 1 step too far. To the Chengdu Hunters' credit, they did a nice job trying to sustain through those EMPs, but the coordination was just a little bit too tight. The nades coming in, especially from the side. Well, really, of both Kyo and Bebe, both finding a ton of big nades there, but I think, again, it's just that defender's advantage that plays to their strengths on the Hangzhou Spark. Lets them get that map win.
So the Spark up 2-0 now against the Hunters. Hunters, they've been fearsome all Countdown Cup long, but now they must dig deep, find it within themselves for a reverse sweep if they're going to bring this back. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, it's time for our game break.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by HyperX. Unleash your style, unleash your fury with HyperX Fury Memory. And by Coca-Cola, the official refreshment of the Overwatch League.
It's time for your game break presented by Cheez-It Grooves, and this is a result here that I don't think a whole lot of people might have expected heading on in. Chengdu looking incredibly hot heading into the series, number 2 seed overall in the Countdown Cup, now down 2 maps to the Hangzhou Spark, where the Spark have seemingly been very adaptive this series, have had the answer more often than not, and they've really taken the Hunters to task.
If anything, they're beating them at their own game right now. You know, like the Hunters, they were able to dominate the London Spitfire by just playing at a tempo that Spitfire weren't ready to keep up with. You know, with London trying to play some slower comps, trying to slow the game down, they could just never successfully get control of it, and the Hunters were able to force their will. However, with the Spark just going, you know, absolutely all in, all chips to the center of the table, saying we're just going to start the game on the fastest, most aggressive composition we can play, and we're just never going to switch off of it, then it's kind of a lot more difficult for Chengdu to take the reins, because it's Spark getting those initiations, it's Godspeed charging up the faster EMPs. So, you know, I think for the Hunters, it's a bit of a back to the drawing board moment, maybe changing something up. I don't think this was on Ating. I think he had a great game on the Winston, had some really nice primals, kept his team in it. Ultimately, what this came down to is that it's incredibly hard to captain Bonnie third in this mirror match without some sort of God mode play.
Well, speaking of God mode plays, that brings us, of course, to Crunch Time, also presented by Cheez-It Grooves. And, Jake, I feel like there's just one play in particular that really stands out as something that was just completely shattering to the entire map.
Oh, yes. I mean, that freaking 180 sleep while being hacked. You know, normal humans, when they realize they're being hacked, they turn around, they try and maybe shoot at the Sombra, maybe try and cancel the hack. Well, not Bebe. He just 180 sleeps you. And, you know, if you think about how difficult it was on the reverse side for the Chengdu Hunters to get through that choke point on third, well, you think without that sleep dart onto Jinmu, you know, would the Spark have even capped third at all? Would they even have been able to get it through in the end? And honestly, I'm not sure. So you have to think, Bebe, that might be a series-winning play right there. Definitely a map winner.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more to that, where I think you look at the entire situation, Chengdu, they had the edge in ultimates, they had the edge in tempo there, and a full 6v6 fight with a good Jinmu EMP. I don't think the Spark get through. I don't even think they get as far as Chengdu did. So, you know, it's just interesting, Jake, how one play could so drastically change the series because, you know, let's say Bebe doesn't land that sleep dart and the Hunters win Nabani. Now it's 1-1, it's anyone's game, and there's a lot more room for error for the Hunters, but now the Hunters, they find themselves in the same spot that they did back at the beginning of the Countdown Cup qualifiers where, all right, they're down 2 maps against a team, and they have to go for the reverse sweep, and, you know, the Hunters, again, this is a team that I think more than any other team in the Overwatch League, I would look at and go, okay, yeah, they could definitely do this. I mean, the Hunters are variable even on a map-to-map basis, but it's still hard. It's still unlikely. You never want to be in the spot that you have to win 3 straight.
Yeah, certainly not. And what I'm more worried about than anything is it's like, what sort of trump card are the Hunters going to pull out here? The fact that Spark has been playing their own composition, this incredibly fast Tracer Sombra dive style. Spark's been playing this since minute 1, right? They've been forcing this the entire series long. Looks like they've been prepping for this mirror. They want this mirror match. And, you know, if anything, I think that really takes some of the steam out from behind the Hunters, right? They're a team that relies on breaking the mold, on doing something different, on taking control of the pace of the game. But with Spark, you know, accelerator is to the floor right now, pedal to the metal. So how can you really go faster than that? How can you really, you know, take them to task, especially when, you know, in my eyes, a player like Architect is having an absolutely massive performance. You know, great play on the Genji, but even better than that, honestly, on the Tracer, winning a bunch of 1v1s on the flank, finding the pulse bomb pickoffs. You know, how many times has Leave made a play, and then Architect just responds in kind with his own pulse bomb at the enemy Ana?
It's been insane, and the Spark have been operating on all cylinders, and as a result, the Hunters find themselves stuck in the situation where it's win 3 straight or go home. Who's going to win and fight the Dragons a little bit later in our grand final? It's still yet to be decided, but right now, the Spark have the edge. Do the Hunters bring it back? We'll find out right after the break.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by Cheez-It Grooves. Deep flavor, deep crunch. It's a mind crunch. The Overwatch League is brought to you by Pringles Wavy. Big crunch, big flavor. And by TeamSpeak, the official voice supplier of the Overwatch League.
The Hangzhou Spark have the Chengdu Hunters in check. Up 2-0, 1 map away from heading to the grand finals right after this series. And Jake, as I look at it here, Volskaya is going to be our next map in the series, and I don't know if it gets any better for the Hunters here, because we talked a lot last series about how important Sombra is, especially on Volskaya, and between the two teams right now, I think Spark has been playing better around the Sombra.
Yeah, I love the way Godsby has been playing this sort of frontliner role on the Sombra, especially early on in the match when there's no ultimates to be worried about. Godsby is very focused on his tracking, on charging up that EMP as quickly as possible, and he's really putting in big work in that regard. Very fast EMPs coming out, and as well the follow-up has been very clean from the Spark. You know, and on top of that, with how well Architect's playing, winning these duels against Leave pretty consistently, I think this DPS advantage is really starting to play to the favor of the Spark.
And now the Hunters, I mean, this is a team that is no stranger to being in these sorts of situations. A team that sort of almost embraces the madness and brings back games in nearly impossible situations. But this could be the biggest test yet for the Hunters. Certainly some of the biggest stakes that the Hunters have faced in their existence as a team, because, you know, if they win this, they go to the finals of the Countdown Cup, and then who knows what happens, right? And they've really been on a streak as a team. You know, starting out most of the year pretty poorly, and then finding new life in the Countdown Cup to the degree that they're the #2 seed. But I do wonder if we're finally at the end of the line.
Yeah, I mean, I am a bit worried for them with how incredibly well Gushue has been playing on the Winston as well. You know, Ating hasn't been having a bad game, but for the Hunters, part of the reason they got to this #2 seed was their great performance in the hero pool we had this time around, which at least in the Asia-Pacific region saw almost every team, you know, favoring the Wrecking Ball and the Zarya, which, you know, that's Chengdu Hunters' wheelhouse. So, you know, even switching to the Winston, it's not that Ating's not playing well, it's that Gushue is one of the best Winstons, you know, of all time in the Overwatch League. So he's really got his work cut out for him. Spark on the offense here, see if they can crack open the defense from the Hunters.
For the Hunters, what a turnaround it'd be to have a first hold, just flip the momentum of the series, make things winnable. We'll see if they get even that. The Hunters holding back for now, Ating. Under a lot of pressure early on, but so far the Hunters holding their ground in the neutral game. They have to be worried about the pressure coming on Ating.
Yeah, they're just trying to bully this Winston back, and you see as soon as he retreats, Gushue is going to follow and chase, trying to take control of this HUD position. Lei Young wants to battle for supremacy. He is getting healed up by his Ana, so it's going to enable him to do that, but Jinmu cut down. The bash from Mika and the follow-up there, just a little bit too much. Sawson, they tried to finish off that kill. I think that's the right idea. You're probably not winning down one in this position, but, you know, the overextension now just costs everyone their lives, and Spark might just be snowballing this right now.
And this just comes back to the idea that this has not been a great series for Jinmu on the Sombra so far. The Spark are so good at protecting each other. The DPS great at checking the DPS of the Chengdu Hunters, and now the Spark just getting crazy momentum, Jake. They're gonna get point A, and you already see them just sitting here poking and prodding at point B.
Yeah, they're pretty clearly feeling themselves here on attack. Still, though, not too massive of an ult advantage. Architect doesn't find anything with that pulse bomb. A missed stick there. Rare mistake out of him. However, Godsby is doubling up Jinmu right now on EMP charge. That's really what to keep your eyes on here, because that ult can really just blow things out of the water when it comes to the dive mirror.
I mean, the upside for the Hunters, they're just going to go in. They drop the nano. They decide we're not going to wait for anything else. We're going to take the initiative. Ating moves in after the nano, but the problem is it works out overall so far. Bebe goes down early. Leave ends up with 2, and you know, as a Spark, we're trying to get a better positioning. The Hunters are okay with this sort of trade-off.
Yeah, the nano onto Ating definitely was enough there. However, the issue is that Jinmu did go down. He was, I believe, slept early on and then finished off, so he didn't really manage to bridge the gap too much with Godsby. He caught up a little bit, but still, Spark are going to be sitting on 5 ultimates. Only thing they're missing is the Pulse Bomb, which is, you know, arguably the most disposable. Actually, inarguably, is definitely the most disposable ultimate in their entire composition. Hunters, though, with a big grab from Lei Young. Okay, he's dead, actually. So now Spark's going to be charging down mid.
He was about to build grab, but got a little bit too greedy, perhaps. The Spark now, a free 6-on-5 opportunity. They drop the EMP. Godsby, though, falls mid-EMP attempt. The Graviton from Saucin just contains it for a little while. Doesn't result in anything. The Spark are going in. What's going to be a 5-on-6. Late Young coming out of spawn with the grab. This, you know, I think the Spark are making the right move by trying to get out.
Yeah, that EMP was, I mean, it got off, but then Godspeed just instantly killed. The follow-up wasn't there at all there. So A-Ting's Primal definitely keeps him alive through the grab. Saucin maybe being overconfident, but that pulse bomb from Architect, an opening where it didn't seem like there was any life for the Spark.
Here we go again, and force out the Graviton from Late Young, and oh boy, that's a big grab. Leave there through, and that immediately shuts down what could have been an enormous Spark.
Yeah, definitely, and they're fully reset on ultimates now. Nothing risky with this next team fight. However, both teams have been fully reset. The big problem, though, is that Keo, he's almost got his next Nano online, which is going to, you know, lead into the Primal from A-Ting. So, you know, just having one ultimate, well, the Nano is just about the best case scenario. Any ultimate that offers damage boost potential is just such an efficient way to get ahead in the ultimate economy and stay ahead. You know, one ult leads into building the next, etc.
Well, the Hunters have been really good so far about supporting A-Ting off the Nanos. And, I mean, the Hunters right now, they just see an opportunity like this, go, oh, we only have Nano? That's fine. I expect any moment here they're probably going to Nano A-Ting, and he's just going to dive into the back. Nano on the A-Ting, here we go. However, this time A-Ting...
Spooked by Mika there. He does not get the landing that he was hoping for.
Yeah, so, I mean, the Hunters stuck with the playbook, but this time they get nothing out of it. And this leaves a big opportunity for the Spark. They enter pretty deeply into the point here. I'll see if the Hunters have anything to turn around. Late Young on top. They deal with Saucin. Leave was able to get in there off the hack, and Leave continues to go crazy into the back.
Yeah, Lee's had enough of this Architect guy getting in his face, shutting him down. Now it's Leave's turn, and with the defender's advantage, they're really capitalizing it here on the Chengdu Hunters. So far, the ultimate economy game hasn't really, I mean, there was that one moment where the Spark were in control, but missing that window has not cost them nearly. They haven't had that same opportunity again, and I wonder, will they even get another chance like that on this offense?
I mean, I think coming up might be their best chance. They have an EMP advantage temporarily, as long as Jinbu doesn't get the last 17% before the Spark initiate. Spark, they're already on the point, so I think they should be safe here. It just depends on how swift they are. Godspeed hasn't found the opportunity yet, and there's Leave again! Leave continues to decimate the Spark in the back. The EMP comes out, but you're down your Ana. The Spark don't feel good about this fight at all.
No, certainly not. And I think the EMP there, a little bit too little too late, right? Remember, this is still Assault. You might be playing a fast dive comp, but your Ana is your slowest respawn on the entire team. So, you know, losing her to a Pulse Bomb, I don't think you can win a fight like that, honestly, unless you get some sort of massive grab combo. Architect shuts down Leave, but will this really result in a power play? It might get Architect in for free on the flank, but I think that's about it, right? Leave's going to be back in the fight so quick on this Tracer.
And Leave has been public enemy #1 for the Spark here so far. I mean, there's so many fights in this round alone that Leave is simply put on his back. The Spark have to be respecting the Tracer a lot more than they have been. We'll see what happens in the next fight. A-Ting, Nano, to the back, goes in deeply again, you know, ends up getting hit with the grab, and it actually works out pretty well. The Hunters were not all around A-Ting that time. Leaves out of the fight. They've dealt with both the major threats in the Spark. One of their best opportunities of all time, heading into Volsky.
Tick is acquired. Grab EMP, though, comes out. Spark dying very quickly. The nade was perfect from Keo with the assistance of the EMP. And oh, what a one-EV sleep on the Architect as well. I think that's just insult to injury, though. This should be a solid hold. However, Spark did get some good progress on point. That might be all they get this round, but it could be enough to win the map.
Yeah, I mean, you take what you can get on point B, and okay, A-Ting a little bit deep there. I don't think it'll cost the Hunters too much, but now's about the time that they should back out. If one more person gets staggered, then it gets tough.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't think it's a big deal dying for a little bit more Primal Charge. The Primal's going to be pretty valuable this fight. However, Godspeed does have EMP. It's going to come out. Only finds Late Young and Veltal. They do find the Zarya kill, though, so Saucin going to have some free reign on point.
Getting rid of Late Young might be enough. A-Ting, though, ready to go in, use the Primal. This is very... Oh, he gets slapped! A-Ting's in danger, but gets Godspeed before falling. Not entirely for naught. And now you look towards Leave. Leave's been the hero so many times for the Hunters. Stunned. Still around. The Spark down Gushway. And this is still a very tough engagement for the Spark. You're down your main tank. You have to keep it in contest. Leave wins the Tracer battle. And that should be it. The Hunters about to fully evict the Spark from point.
Yeah, Saucin gets a grab, but it's just too little too late here. Nano on an A-Tank just for the cleanup. You know, why not at this point? Gushway does get Primal. You can imagine he's going to jump around, stall point, but I mean, you're 1v6 at this point, so Chengdu Hunters managed to hold 64.5 is the progress on second point. So it's going to have to be a clean defense. However, I mean, we saw how much trouble this mirror matchup gave to the attackers. It's so awkward to get a good fight going. The defenders just start the fight so aggressively. They jump in on your Ana every single time. You know, on defense, it's so much easier to position and just peel your Ana because she's preemptively on the high ground. She's in the back, you know, set up next to a Brig. Just a lot easier to do it, to defend a position like that.
This is where the Spark were getting some big momentum here. And Graviton, and it was a pretty good grab in the end. Help the Hunters solidify. But you know, I look at this man right here, Leave, as the driving force behind most of this Hunters defense, right? Where it didn't really matter what the play was or what the Spark were doing. You could find Leave in the back line, just taking down whoever he wanted, whenever he wanted. And that was one of the more just ridiculous performances by a Tracer I think I've seen.
You know, Leave and my girl both drowning. Catch me at the enemy spawn on Tracer.
I mean, that's an easy decision at that point. Leave just playing crazy. And I think that's what the Hunters need. I mean, the Hunters are going to bring this back, do a reverse sweep. You need someone on your team to just fully lose their minds and become superhuman. And maybe that person right now for the Hunters is Leave.
I'm still not convinced just yet, though. The Hunters, they've got to take this map to make me a believer. And it's not over yet. Defender's advantage is no joke on Volskaya Industries. Even capping first point can be pretty awkward. And we saw that the Spark were actually able to blow it out of the water. So I think it all starts right here for the Hunters in being able to do the same thing. Give yourself a lot of time to cap second point, because you're probably going to need it.
Meanwhile, Architect, oh, clean. Knew the health pack hack would be coming, just waited there. Easy assassination. And that's going to delay the Spark, or going to delay the Hunters a little bit.
Yeah, and that first kill, you know, buys quite a bit more time. A-Tank is going to jump right back in, though. Trying to just charge up this Nano, I think, more than anything else for Kyo. He honestly wants to take damage like this. Although, this might be a little bit over-aggressive, as Lei Young did get slept, but oh, he is woken, and somehow Lee finds Bebe. So, I mean, that should be first point right there.
He's back, capitalizing on the sleep, and yeah, I mean, the Spark, look at their health bars. They have no sustain whatsoever here. The Brigitte alone should not be enough, and this is easy pickings for Leave to just dash around and finish people off. Goes for the pulse bomb, takes down Sassen. A Tracer's playground right now here, Jake, and Leave just cannot be stopped.
Nano from Kyo, I honestly think that's a bit overkill. I think they could have saved that for second point, and despite the fact that this is an early cap, Godsby has EMP 40% before Jinwoo does, so I mean, Godsby is just dominating right now in this EMP charging game. And, you know, the Chengdu Hunters, yes, they have capped first, but second point is a much more brutal test.
I'm going to take a loan for a down payment on a Temple, just build it to Leave if this keeps up, because this has just been an insane showing. But the Hunters, 5.5 minutes, not too much to go on point B. A-Ting, though, going to get hit with the EMP to the face, immediately focused down, and they'll slow the Hunters down at least a little bit.
Yeah, Leave trying to escape with his life. Does get the bubbles. I think he might be able to escape here on Tracy. See if he's able to find some more kills. Still brawling it out here. Wow, very greedy to be taking those sort of peaks without recall, especially against a player like Godsby. You don't want to mess with his Draken.
Definitely not. And the Hunters, I mean, they're going to have multiple great windows here to get the remaining percent that they need. They need 64.6% to win the map outright. Now A-Tank moving in. No Nano this time, but Primal enough to be a big disruption in the back. Waiting, uses the Primal now. He's looking for knockoffs. Spark just keeping it together. Meanwhile, usually he's doing this on the other side, but Lei Young lands the grab after the corralling. Leave there on the fall through the pulse bomb. And this is getting very close to the end, Jake.
Yeah, 3 kills. This could be everything for. It's all over here for the Spark. Chengdu Hunters coming right back into the series with a map win of their own. It will not be a sweep here. And now, well, you said it's EP. If any team can reverse sweep, it might be the Chengdu Hunters. And, you know, that's probably maybe the way to give yourself proper confidence going into the grand finals here up against the Dragons. Imagine if you could get a reverse sweep from this point forward. You know, those early map losses will be quickly forgotten.
Look, if I'm the Dragons and I'm looking at the series, which clearly they are, I'm already starting to make some game plans around just overly focusing on Leave, because that entire performance from defense, which of course was a lot longer, into the attack, I mean, that was nuts. Like, we talk about the way a team sets things up a lot, and certainly there's factors there, but that was just a crazy individual performance coming out by Leave.
Yeah, certainly. The pulse bombs were just on target time and time again. And I mean, think about first point, right? He just somehow got a pick onto Bebe, and seemingly without too much support from his team. So pretty insane Tracer gameplay here. So we see him just pushing it to the limit with the pulse bomb, forces the enemy Zarya into the corner, and doesn't even need the stick in that case.
So the Hunters showing signs of life here in our semifinal matchup, looking to win the right to fight the Dragons in the grand final. Still a long ways to go. Can they complete the reverse sweep? We're going to take a break, and then we'll find out.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by T-Mobile. Switch today and rank up to America's largest 5G network, T-Mobile.
The Hunters taking their first map of the series on Volskaya. Now something to work with as we head into our next map on Gibraltar. The Spark still, of course, leading the series 2-1. But now, Jake, as we head into Gibraltar, a map that is inherently chaotic, regardless of the teams playing. What do you think of the Hunters' chances as we move forward?
Well, I mean, I'm imagining that this pick could allow Architect to go back to the Genji potentially because, you know, although typically Tracer's a hero that's able to exert more force on the map, able to dominate the control fight, and then you think of Genji normally as this, you know, hero with a bigger, badder ultimate combo. On Gibraltar, that can be a little bit different. There's so much verticality. It can be hard for Tracer to get to the positions that she really wants to be to challenge enemy tanks. You know, when Winston goes for the high ground, he could just leave Tracer in the dust. So a hero like Genji might potentially fit a little bit better, and that really plays to Architect's strengths in particular, where Leave has looked a lot better, of course, on the Tracer. Jinmu is typically the Sombra and the Genji player. So if you're going to sacrifice one of those roles, then I think you could be in trouble here, although it's very possible that we could see the Tracer forced anyway, right? I don't want to overstate, you know, there is a lot of verticality, of course, but, you know, Tracer's one of the most high mobility heroes in the game, so she can sort of make up for it in other ways.
No, I mean, you kind of bring up an inadvertent point here when I look at it, is that, you know, I think about heroes that you can play here. I would love to see a scenario that, you know, if you're playing Genji, you know, yeah, we've seen Leave play Genji also, obviously an incredibly versatile player, but also the idea of Jinmu getting to play Genji again, because, you know, I look at the Hunters this series and, you know, yeah, they just won Volskaya, but I don't think that was a great performance by Jinmu on the Sombra, even on Volskaya, right? It was still pretty tough overall, but, you know, as we look at the Hunters as they head out, they're still going to be rolling with it. You know, I just do wonder how things would pan out if they had the opportunity to play Jinmu and the Genji, where I think, you know, between the two heroes, Jinmu's a much stronger Genji relative to the Sombra.
Yeah, definitely. I think what it comes down to is just that the Sombra is just almost a must-have when you are going to play this mirror match, right? The EMP is just devastating. you know, the enemy could be coming into the fight with a lot of ultimates ready to pop off, and they just get EMP'd and shut down, and it's just such a ridiculous tempo swing. There's no other ultimate in the game that, you know, is so impossible to interact with. Like, literally, you just can't do anything if you get EMP'd, so, you know, that sort of lack of counterplay really makes this hero great, and on top of that, you know, even the neutral game hacks can really help things out, especially for attackers.
So it is going to be the Spark on the attack first. Jinmu just scouting right now. But really, the person I want to know where he is Leave, and I'm sure Spark want to know the very same thing. Hunters right now not going too crazy on checking Spark as they round the first bend.
Yeah, it's all about this EMP charge battle right here. Jinmu so far getting the best of it. Last time it was Godspeed, now it's Jinmu. Now he's trying to go for some hacks here, so a little bit greedy. You're looking for a kill instead of just farming up that EMP. But Leave again opens things up onto Bebe. We've seen it time and time again, and now we should see the Spark just getting completely team-wiped.
This is turning into a horror movie right now, and Leave is the monster. I don't know what else to say. Where, yeah, the Hunters clean that up, but you know what helps? When your Tracer just goes in and assassinates the Ana on the other side, there just has not been a good answer for Leave over the last map and a half.
Man, A-Ting really pushed that one to the limit. Just a quarter second, he doesn't get that jump off, he would probably die in the pit right there. So, pushing the limits on the timings, but that's what it takes to be in the Overwatch League.
I mean, it's that Razor's Edge. Leave forced back out. Rarity right now, the way the game has been going. The Hunters bending back a little bit, but you have to think this Nano here. We're looking at Keo, but we're going to be looking A-Ting here in a moment. There it is. Nano on the A-Ting, heading to the back line. Again, plenty of damage coming in. Sleep a little bit later in the fight, but you're down your Brigida. It's still tougher to bring back. But Architect starts on it, takes down the Gutsel in the back. Both supports down for the Hunters, and Architect! A little bit of Tracer power to the other side.
Bebe's so low, but so far he's surviving. Sawson did an incredible job protecting his teammate. A-Ting as well baited in. Bebe just nades himself, keeps himself up, and Architect and Godspeed just got the better of the backline trade there. Sawson is another player I want to highlight. The fact that he can shut down Leave, it's so critical. And Zarya, not really the best hero at fighting Tracer. It can be awkward to track her, but you know, Sawson, he's got the mechanical skill to make it work.
Shui trying to keep up some of the pressure here for the Spark. Dancing on top of the ship. Late Young lands his grab, but meanwhile, speaking of grab, Sawson lands one on Keo on the other end. The Spark trying to maintain their advantage. Gushue brings things to the edge. Primals at the last moment. Got a Biolate on the Beltol and A-Ting, and Late Young just gets stomped by Gushue as the payload continues to move forward.
It's going to be all about this EMP mirror battle on the final second contest. You see both Sombras want to set up for it, but Godspeed's out in the open right here. He could be caught out by Jinmu, but he actually catches Jinmu out of invis, and Jinmu can't get the EMP off. Just blind EMP by Godspeed, and it works out perfectly. That's prediction right there.
That is a Sombra difference right there. Godspeed, right place, right time, denies Jinmu for doing the same to his team. And this is unrelenting momentum coming in from the Spark. 5 minutes left to go. They cruise through point B. Now it's on to point C.
It's pretty incredible awareness from Godspeed. You just know Chengdu's going to come back and hit the recontest there. And obviously it'll be the Sombra, right? Who else would do it? Now, though, Jinmu's has his turn to drop the EMP. Nano is on to Brig, though, so Mika going to be incredibly difficult to deal with. The raid boss is out, although she is hacked, so her actual damage threat could be a little bit neutered. However, both supports still alive. Some nice tracking out of Lee, but so much support coming into this Ana.
Well, Bebe still alive there, surprisingly, but I'm not sure Leave will be denied. Leave's still looking for it. Late Young ends up stealing the kill at the end, but one way or another, Leave was getting it. And the Hunters do stabilize, but they didn't get stabilized for a lot longer, Jake.
Yeah, and Spark, they make it expensive at the very least, coming into the third point. Now it's all about finding that moment to get overwhelming ultimate advantage. But I love that Chengdu, they're not giving up any ground at all. They're going to force Spark to win 2 fights consecutively, which is a lot more difficult when it comes to fighting ultimate advantage, right? So one thing to do it a single time on this final point, but it's a whole other thing to get that multiple times in a row.
Out early, A-Ting some Biolate. Expecting the Nano to have the A-Ting soon. No! The Nano does not come out in time. And now the Spark, a big opportunity. The Hunters are trying to be a little bit more economical there, and it might come back to bite them. They didn't lead the Nano onto the Winston. And now the Spark looking to add to their advantage, chasing down the Hunters, pushing them back. The Hunters, though, back at full strength. A-Ting going to get the Nano. They go again, and that's a big EMP. Strikes 5, and the fall-through is there.
Yeah, beautiful stuff from Jinmu. The initiation is just perfect there. And I love that from Hunters. They back up just enough. Spark getting baited in, trying to finish off those kills, but the first ultimates are there for the Hunters. However, they didn't really get too much. The cleanup was actually too quick, if anything, off the EMP. They don't really charge any ultimates on the side of the Hunters. So Leave's Pulse Bomb is really all that's standing between Spark and finishing off this map. EMP grab is a truly devastating combo.
Let's not underplay it.
Oh,
Leave's Pulse Bombs have been
okay.
insane. Yeah, and that is my point, exactly. Normally I go like, yeah, it's just a Pulse Bomb. But it's Leave's Pulse Bomb, and that's as good as a one-team fight, the way things have been going.
This guy just won't be denied. Pretty incredible stuff from Leave, really starting to light it up on the Tracer. And, well, it did bridge one gap. Now Late Young's got another grab, so at least there's some sort of answer here in the cards for the Hunters. So awkward. Look at Godspeed. I mean, how does he find a good EMP here? Hunters are playing this so well. Their position on the map, so awkward to EMP.
Hunters take the initiative too. They drop the Graviton, which forces Godspeed the EMP result. But it's not enough to save Sawson. Already out of the fight, the Hunter's looking plenty healthy, and that's a big L for the Spark.
Yeah, that's a pretty massive one, and the cleanup comes in. This time, everyone is getting a ton of ultimate charge on the side of the Hunters. They're going to be in a great position as far as ultimate economy goes. Both teams have a lot to work with, but Jinmu has the lead on the EMP, and you know the rest of the economy, it almost doesn't matter when EMPs are on the cards.
The stagger coming in, and okay.
Nothing.
But why? I mean, I guess they're hoping to pick off a member to the Hunters, but even if they did, it doesn't buy the Spark a ton here. I mean, it stops the chaos, I guess, maybe is the point, but this is getting worse before it gets better. A-Ting just juggling here in the back, though. Again, if you're the Hunters, you don't want to overextend here too much. Spark coming back out with a full 6.
Yeah, and Arctic gonna make the switch over to the McCree. Maybe he can get a cheeky flashbang kill in this fight. Now the dynamic has changed significantly. Chengdu's gonna have to be the aggressor because Arctic will be outputting a lot more damage over the course of a long fight. Although Jinmu, look at him on the top ropes with the EMP, about to drop it on the heads of the Hangzhou Spark.
Well, he has a great vantage point. The problem is the Hunters aren't ready to fall through. That's why Jinmu's stuck waiting. And the EMP comes out first. The Spark looking to take initiative.
Oh, Bubble counters the Pulse Bomb.
They're gonna get Late Young. No, Late Young gets healed right back up. Kyo, they're on the heels, and now the Hunters, they're gonna drop their EMP. Hits 3.
Architect.
That's enough to put Godspeed in the ground. Architect, though, still in it. 5 on 5. The Creed doesn't quite care, and the Hunters are not out of it yet.
Architect still trying to win this fight. Leave gonna switch over to the Widowmaker. Kind of an odd choice here as A-Ting dives in, but I don't think he's got the damage to quite get this done on his own. There's not really follow-up here with Leave on the Widow, and Architect just cuts him down.
The Graviton in there. Time for Architect. Another Graviton, this time in from Late Young. Hunters keep their initiative. The Deadeye, a great vantage point, takes down Yukutzel, and Architect ready to go. Can't quite land the shots on the A-Ting, and A-Ting lasts long enough to get the Primal. The problem is the Spark, they're still winning the rest of the fight. A-Ting ends up following, and the Spark just about there.
Leave to the Widow, a pretty questionable decision here as Hunters just crumble. A couple respawns out of the Widow, didn't really get anything done. And with how incredibly well Leave's been playing on the Tracer this series, I don't love that decision. I mean, I guess it's a response to the McCree, but I think you just didn't have the sort of map position required to make Widow work. She never really got a high ground, never really got an aggressive peak going. I don't love that from Leave.
I kind of feel like there was almost a Pokemon moment where Leave was like trying to evolve the Fleta, going Widow at the last moment, and then like the trainer just came in and canceled it, and the trainer was Architect saying, no, absolutely not. I'm a creepy beat your Widow. Get out of here.
Oh, what a beautiful EMP from Jinmu. And, you know, this map has really been back and forth with some incredible plays from a Spark on the first 2 points, and then Chengdu holding it pretty well on third. However, I think this full cap might come back to bite the Chengdu Hunters. I think we could be looking at another potential Nambani situation where third is just super hard to cap with no mistakes on the defender side.
All right, so now we swap sides. It's going to be the Spark on the defense, the Hunters on the attack. And the Hunters, what is in front of them is simple. They must finish the map or they go home after what has been a Cinderella story all throughout the Countdown Cup. Now the Rubber's going to have to meet the road. We'll see if they have it takes to keep the series going and keep the dream of the reverse sweep alive. And honestly, Zarya's just defying physics and it upsets me. What was going on there? That actually unsettles me. Everything about that emote used in succession.
Something is not right here. As we see Chengdu, I love this TP across, get your brig to the high ground quicker than normal so you can just make this absolute fastest possible contest on the high ground. These little bits of efficiency, they stack up, they matter a lot in the long run.
Hunters not looking to be chill at all here, pushing the payload and at the same point, actually not pushing the payload, stop for a moment. Focusing on the pressure onto the Spark, Godsby finding himself hacked. Enough support to stay alive, nothing too crazy. In fact, Jinmu in a little bit more danger. And the Hunters right now, Jake, they're not focusing as much on the payload as much as they have been just trying to force a Spark out of position.
Oh, this high ground is everything, and Lei Young is really dominating it. They're trying to get a kill on the Sauce, and he just barely escapes with his life. So Spark playing this one very close, and Aething getting a ton of primal out of that high ground contest. So part not important right here for the Hunters. I think they're playing this really well. High ground control is just dominating.
2 down for the Spark, and I mean, this is relentless pressure, and oh, it doesn't get any better. Aething juggling off in the corner, gets another 2, and everything going well for the Hunters here so far.
Yeah, and Chengdu just trying to snowball forward here. Gonna leave one on card to finish it off. But, oh, did Mika get a back spawn here? Well, it looks like Guangzhou did. He's just hiding it out in the forward spawn. Do they even realize? No, I don't think they do. They went down for Bebe, but they didn't realize Guangzhou was down there too.
Well, you know, sometimes you're just stealthy as a Winston. You wouldn't really imagine why or how, but...
A large gorilla. He's a scientist. A scientist, I mean, not a gorilla. I'm sorry.
If you stay perfectly still, you become invisible. I've heard it from a reliable source. But now the Spark looking to solidify here on point B, not get speed ran through the first 2 points as they get to the Hunters. 1 round to go. I got news for you. It's pretty late in the night. Leave has a pulse bomb. Where's it gonna go? Architect already down. And the Hunters just keeping up the pressure.
Yeah, the surprise flag from Guangzhou delayed the card a little bit, but they haven't really allowed Spark to stabilize at all, and it's all about the EMP trade now going into this next fight as both Sombras vying for position. Oh, big, that's a massive grab actually from Lei Young, but the follow-up isn't there.
Well, the Spark ended up getting a little bit more. Both Tracers getting something out of it, but now Architect on the prowl. Sasson takes down Jinmu. Architect just chasing down, but somehow behind Sasson, who gets the meat of it.
I think both Zaryas just got massive grabs there. The Pulse Bomb just didn't have a counter on the side of Architect. Sasson was able to save his bubbles, and you know that cooldown is everything when it comes to surviving a grab. Now, though, it did cause Godsby's EMP to make that hold work, so Jinmu has the opening to capture second point. He needs to find a big EMP, but can be really awkward on second point in particular. There's not really any place that the defenders are going to group up. To find more than 2 people with the EMP is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, especially for Jinmu, who I think has been struggling a lot throughout the series. This might be the opportunity. Was waiting to over the top, but first thing Nano onto Aething. A little bit of disruption, getting low, and he's investing to the point that he's going to primal. Primal a little bit later, looking for the reheat up. Meanwhile, Godsby punishes Leave, so Leave can't be the carry this time. And the Spark just maintain their composure, Jake, and the Hunters have no choice but to back out.
Yeah, that damage into Aething was absolutely filthy. They just destroyed him. Godsby is hacked, but Bebe with the incredible pocket, keeping Godsby alive through everything. He survives the hack. Courtesy of Bebe's on that perfect play on that healer, and with Veltov falling to Architect, that's the crucial pick that's going to give Spark the road back into the second point hold.
Lei Young taking down the Spark, methodically staggering the Hunters, one elimination after the other. And I mean, part of it is self-inflicted by the Hunters, Jake, as they're just staying in these fights for an incredibly long period of time. Usually serves them well, but not so much here in point B.
Yeah, now no defensive ultimates at all. Sasson sitting on a Graviton Surge. Godsby gonna have the EMP. Chengdu, they've got to find some way to get this fight at least some value. You need to force as many ultimates as possible from the Spark, but the Spark just want to win it with one.
Aething on the top. No Nano's gonna be coming in this time, so he has to be a lot more careful. Heavy focus fire. Architect on the chase.
And Aething with a fully passive jump there just to survive.
And I mean, that's what happens when you don't have quite the tools to back. Now Lei Young trying to make something happen. Goes for the Graviton, takes out Sasson, gives his life for it. Leave hanging on to the Pulse Bomb. Not obvious targets around, but the Hunters starting to push ahead. Up 6v5 right now. In the neutral, Leave heading in, going for the Pulse Bomb. Gonna whiff that one, that's rare. Meanwhile, the Bionade is in, and that's a Nano Guangzhou. Moving on over, looking for Leave of all people. A bit questionable.
Well, you said it. Someone's got to focus this guy, and oh, this time Architect finds Veltal and can't even bring out the rally in that circumstance. Not going to protect you, so it's another reset. Spark, they have blown most of their bank, but the rally, you know, if you had one ultimate right here for the defensive second point, you would choose rally 10 times out of 10. So, you know, the fact that Veltal has his own, Jinmu has an EMP, he, I think, really needs to try to find this EMP in such a way that Mika can't get the rally off. But of course, rally is instant, and EMP has a cast time, so it's pretty much always going to favor Mika in that interaction.
And for the Hunters, this could be the final opportunity. The Cinderella story at stake. 50 seconds left remaining. Spark try and close this out. EMP out from Jinmu. It's enough to take down Godspeed early. Hunters on a man advantage. Now let's see if they have more. A-Ting blocking the door, saying no Anas allowed. Dashing over. That should be it for point B. And the Hunters now give themselves a little bit of time for point C, but it's not much, Jake. Under 2 minutes left to go.
Yeah, it's on the clock. I think the Spark just needs to stabilize one time here, and then, of course, win that final overtime fight. And they will be punching their ticket to face off against the Shanghai Dragons here in the grand finals of the APAC Countdown Cup.
So the Hunters, can they please their fans? Can they force a map 5? Can they go for the reverse sweep? Do the Spark end it here on this final point? A-Ting finds Godspeed early. Ushui, meanwhile, pressuring up the Nano, but so far Chengdu not looking too afraid. And there's the bomb from Leave, takes down Sassen, and the momentum coming back in for the Hunters. The dream is not dead just yet. Architect though.
You can't stop this guy. What a clutch kill onto the brig, just completely stymieing the momentum of this offense. He takes so long to fall, it's going to buy the rest of his team time to spawn. And Tracer Core so fast, it's not really a big deal for her to die late.
No, but they did bring in Leave, the special artillery, to deal with them there. Kyo, though, just got assassinated. Gushue jumped in. Meanwhile, you have the Graviton here for Blake Young. Leave all through. A-Ting just sitting by the door. EMP, though, dropped by Godspeed, and this is a big trade-out fight, and I'm not sure it favors the Hunters right now, Jake.
Yeah, you can tell Gushue is confident, just lets himself die, doesn't commit his primal, values that ultimate, you know, very highly, doesn't want to just commit it in a fight that's already won, which that looks to be the case here for the Spark. Architect back to the Tracer, and you know, just the defender spawn advantage here is absolutely massive. This is a late pick onto Leave, who, you know, coming into a final fight scenario, that's pretty tough. Bright spot is Jinmu's EMP, really, and it has to be huge. For the defender side, all they need to do is split, make sure Gushue gets his primal rage off, and looks like they want to be aggressive. They just want to initiate the fight going all the way into the backline right now.
It's all or nothing for the Hunters. Do they have what it takes? Or does it all end now? A-Ting holding on to the primal. The Hunters all still alive. Nano on the Sassen. Burn things down, but instead, Late Young in his face. But they turn, they take down Yveltal. The Hunters down one here so far. A-Ting primal still low on HP. The Spark at a full 6. They take down Late Young. And now the Chengdu Hunters on a whim and a prayer trying to survive. They don't get the Nano off. Gushue finishes off Kyo. A-Ting's out of the fight. And the Hunters, you had one heck of a run. But it ends now. The Spark, they face the Dragons right after this match.
Oh man, what a knockdown drag out, and it finishes kind of just like Numbani, where the Spark are just a little bit better in the clutch, aren't making any mistakes on the defense, and you have to wonder, I mean, you give Chengdu Hunters another 2, 3, 4 minutes, can they finish out that map? The Spark just a little bit cleaner when it mattered most, and a little bit more comfortable, frankly, playing the Tracer Somber comp. You know, heroics from Leave, great Winston play out of A-Ting, but it was matched and then some by the artillery fire from the Spark.
And I also just think that, you know, we talked about the meta favoring Chengdu so much over the course of the Countdown Cup, and, you know, I think the meta just shifted to something that I don't think Chengdu was as good at. I don't think, you know, as heroic as Leave was throughout the course of the series, you know, I don't think Jinmu and the Sombra was necessarily the biggest comfort point for the Hunters, and, you know, it wasn't quite as explosive as they usually were expected to be. But on the other side, Jake, we do have our player of the match presented by Xfinity, and, you know, I totally agree with this. It's Architect, a player that was able to take the DPS of the Chengdu Hunters' task for the most part.
And, you know, we talked about Leave. Leave, of course, did find a ton of huge openings on Tracer, but how many times did Leave find one, and then Architect just responds with another? And, you know, I think it's like Architect always had the second pickoff, which is actually better, right? That's the moment where the opponents think they have the edge, they think they're stronger, but in fact, you strike right back, shut down their back line and, or even stalling card for a little bit longer. So when it comes to the way that the Spark won this series, you have to think Architect's a huge part of that. These clutch holds on defense. If Architect doesn't find these counterpunch kills, pulse bombing the back line, Veltal dying on the brig over and over and over again, then there's a lot of moments here where Hunters would have just snowballed through. So you got to give props to Architect that, to be the clutch player like that, to know that your team's down one, this pulse bomb must connect, and then to actually make it happen, that's another story right there. So for Architect, a well-deserved player of the match. Really impressive showing from him on the Tracer and the Genji.
And, of course, that was our player of the match presented by Xfinity. And, look, this was a great series. Even though it was a 3-1, both teams showing up big at moments. I mean, I'll still remember Leave's heroic Tracer performance on Volskaya for quite a while. The Hunters, I mean, they had a crazy run. It doesn't quite all come together in the end, but I think there's a lot the Hunters can take away from this Countdown Cup, and I think it still overall has to be a morale booster, Jake, as they look forward into the oncoming playoffs.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to build on here. I think you're right to say that ultimately when the meta shifting away from the Wrecking Ball into an even faster dive composition, right, that's on the Winston, the Tracer, and the Sombra, you're not playing heroes like really any projectile heroes, which is where Jinmu I think really shines, really is one of the best players in the world on those core projectile roles, like Pharah in particular, the Genji as well. In the Tracer Sombra match, I think Godsby and Architect were just a little bit too much here in this series. And as well, I want to highlight Gushue on the Winston. I mean, this guy has been nuts on Winston since day one of me seeing him, seeing him in the Overwatch World Cup, playing for Team China, now here in the Overwatch League. Well deserved, because, I mean, this guy is a monster on the Winston. These primals, so precise. Veltal cannot play Mercy against this stuff. You're just going to die to Gushue.
So the Spark, we'll see how far they can bring it. They've defeated Chengdu, but now do they have what it takes to bring the Dragons to task? Coming up right after this quick break, it's going to be the Hangzhou Spark taking on the Shanghai Dragons.